You are watching the Fayetteville Government Channel. Up next, full coverage of the latest City of Fayetteville ward meeting. Ward meetings are held at various times by City Council members to interact with and receive feedback from the residents of their ward.
Well, welcome to Ward 4 meeting. We're glad you're here. Sarah is on an airplane. Work took her away tonight, so we'll miss her. Beth Presley emailed me and said she's ill, so we're going to miss her tonight. Because this is Ward 4 and Friends. So Ward 4 and Friends means that some of our Ward 4 people who got taken out through the redistricting are still welcome to come. Everyone's welcome to come. We have some loyal people who were disappointed about that, and I think we have a guest tonight that may have been taken out of Ward 4. And so why don't let's just go around the table quickly and say hi. And our kid is on the schedule, and I want him to we're going to put him at the top of the agenda tonight so that he can meet his schedule and get on out of here. But I'm Rhonda Adams. I'm so happy to be your Ward 4 representative. I'm in position 1, and thank you all for being here.
And I'm Bob Estes. I live at 668 North Mulligan.
Okay, I'm Bob, and this is Wanda Page. We live on Old Rupel. That's how you call her.
Barry Cox with the Fayetteville Fire Department.
Bill Muller. I live on Markham, and I'm still trying to figure out what district I'm in.
We're glad you're in Ward 4.
I'm in Ward 4. Did get that straight.
That's good.
That's close.
Maurice Rankin on the west side of Fayetteville, Double Springs Road.
Mary Rankin, Maurice's wife.
Glad you're here tonight, Mary.
Travis Buggery with the Fayetteville Fire Department. And Mike Perryman with the Fayetteville Police Department.
And I'm Larry Angus of 4380 West Flagstaff, so we're pretty close.
We are.
And Aubrey Shepherd from 1101 South Duncan, which is just barely out of Ward 4 now, at least several miles away over in Ward 1. When does that go into effect, Rhonda?
Well, really it's in effect
It's in
right
effect.
now, but you know, she will remain your representative really until the election, until the new council comes in.
I'm Malin Rice. I live at 1205 South Pepper Tree Lane. They used to be in Ward 4, it's not anymore, but it's in District 85, which I'm running for state representative.
Welcome, Madeline. Well, I didn't put hi there. Come on in here, David. Will you come sit by me? I would like that. You're here just in time to introduce yourself.
I'm David Williams. I live on Gray Avenue.
Thanks for being here, David. We're very glad you're here. So usually we put the rules up. Sarah and I like to put those up where we kind of remind everybody that we're going to follow the agenda. We're going to try to be finished in an hour if we can be, and take turns in speaking and have a free and easy conversation here, but we're going to try to follow agenda. And tonight you all received an email. Sarah sends out the agendas of the meeting, and you probably saw in there that there was going to be a presentation by Ms. Paula Marinoni about the Marinoni property. Paula's not going to be here tonight. She may be here at a later meeting, and I'm going to give you a little brief introduction, then I'm going to let Kit talk to you a little bit about more of this. Then we'll get into announcements and a lot of other things that I'd like to talk about tonight. But a while back, probably 6 or 8 weeks ago, I was contacted about the possibility of looking into some legislation, changing some legislation about the definition of a family. And when I say that, everybody kind of goes like that, I know. But the definition of family in Fayetteville, and Kit can speak more of the legal part of this, is that folks before me, before I was on council, came up with a great definition: no more than 3 unrelated people in our single family residences. And I do not propose that we change that at all. In fact, I propose we continue to enforce it in every way we can. It's not easily enforceable. And I and your other Alderman Sarah have been known to go knock on doors and ask people how many people are living in there and if they're related or not. When I got into this business of running for Ward 4, you all heard me sitting right here. Protect our neighborhoods, love our neighborhoods, and love the University of Arkansas. I work at the university. I have since I was 18 years old. And I live my daily life talking to students and deans and faculty members and people, staff members. People are very important to me, and I make my living off the university. So the university is huge in my life. That's why I built my house near the university. I like walking to work and participating in the neighborhood. So I have tried in my role as your ward for rep to consider university, those students are our citizens, right? Our staff members are our citizens, many of them, and to consider all those things that affect our neighborhoods and our university, as well as our city in general. But those were kind of my two big things. So when I was approached and asked about looking into this ordinance that says no more than 3 unrelated, I said, I'm not interested in looking at that really. We need no more than 3 unrelated. But then I decided I would listen, and I'd talk to anybody who wants a few minutes of my time about anything. And the more I learned and the more I listened, the more I have decided, and I have decided, that I believe the time is right to look at this ordinance, not change the no more than 3, but to look at ways in which we can look at future developments that might allow 5 or more to live together in a planned development, a PZD, a planned zone development. So working with our planners and our attorneys and our attorney, both of you, and citizens, our university, the president of our POA, of our neighborhood association, getting feedback from people saying, what do you think about this? We've looked at all these little pieces of this, and we have come up with something that I plan to bring before City Council wholeheartedly. So before I turn it over to Ken, I just want to say 2 things. Remember, come from the university situation where, I didn't say this, 17,000 people went to that University of Arkansas 5 years ago. This fall, we have over 23,000 students at the University of Arkansas. We didn't get much more land in Fayetteville, I don't think, over that 5 years. So we've got housing issues for students. And none of us, I don't think in this room, are very happy about them illegally living in our neighborhoods and moving in next door and us having to track them down, try to figure out if they're related or not. We're gonna keep doing that. But this is an idea, a proposal that would look to the future to plan ways in which 5 students or individuals could live together in a planned place who are unrelated and could do it legally. An alternative to them moving into our neighborhoods and doing it illegally is the way I'm seeing this. So let me turn it over to, before I do that, let me say one more thing. I have a website, it's adamsword4.com, and on my website, on the left-hand link is a place where you can read my blog. And I have written too much probably history about myself, but if you get through all that, then you get to the part where I talk a lot about why I'm doing this and what the ordinance says. I've got it all typed out there. And that was an effort to let people go to it and read it in a thoughtful way and then be able to contact me with questions or comments or any of that. So that was longer than I intended it to be, but I just wanted you to know where I'm coming from and why I'm looking at this. Okay? Is that everybody cool with that? All right. Kit, will you please explain what?
Well, I'm going to give you a little history first. About 10 years ago, the city planner, who was Tim Compton at the time, the chairman of the planning commission, who was then Bob Esses, and I, were tasked with the burden of coming up with a legal constitutional definition of family, because you have to be careful in this area that you're not discriminating against anybody, even related, unrelated. You have to look at that. And in fact, we did come up with a definition that's been serving us, I think, fairly well for the last decade, that limits to 3 unrelated persons in a single-family residence and 4 in an apartment, multifamily. However, we do it on zoning. We have prosecuted successfully one landlord, eventually got a $3,000 fine out of it. Very difficult to do. The prosecutor had to do a real in-depth investigation to finally be able to prove that more than 3 or 4 people were living at that residence. Because the landlord was even telling his tenants to lie to us, which we didn't like much, and one reason we hit him as hard as we did. It's hard, because normally an ordinance can only be punished by a $500 fine. Well, we got $3,000 on him, so we hit him for multiple violations. Although I do realize this is still a problem, and in fact, when I first heard or got the request here from Rhonda to say, well, we need to change it, and let's look at 5, I thought, I don't know if I want to change it. We were already confronted once by the housing and urban development people that were following up the complaint saying our ordinance our definition was unconstitutional and discriminatory, and so it went through that whole process. And HUD said, no, it's okay. It's legal. So when I find something that's legal, I hate to change it because I don't want to make it illegal.
Go through all that again.
But as Rhonda explained this to me, and I began to think about it more, it really started to make more sense to me. I know that we have had a problem through the years of too many persons, and mainly students, that would go into a single-family neighborhood and have too many cars there, maybe just be a little bit of a disruption in that neighborhood, because there are a lot of students, including my son. I forced him to live with only 2 people, though, kind of what he did. But there are a lot of students that would like to live in a home as opposed to an apartment. And, you know, I think it's just basically more attractive that way, and our ordinance did not allow that. You could have as many as 4 if the house was in a multifamily district, but you couldn't have any more than that. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to give this as an option for the city council to look at in a planned zoning district. Now, a planned zoning district is not a single house. It's almost always a fairly large piece of land, and oftentimes will have more than just residences, could have businesses in it too, but it's kind of a new type of zoning where the city council is presented with the entire picture. They get to see where the houses are gonna be placed, where the building's gonna be placed, what the building's gonna be used for, all this sort of stuff. Much more information than a flat zoning, which gives you basically no information. So what Rhonda had suggested, and which I think makes a lot of sense, is that we change the definition of family only by saying that you can have up to 5 unrelated people in a planned zoning district if approved by the city council and with proper safeguards for the neighborhood. Now, the proper safeguards, there were a couple that were suggested, but not necessarily. Suggested being a freestanding building not more than 2 stories high. That doesn't mean that that's what is going to be required from every one of these proposed developments, and in fact, a lot more than that could be required. There might be some buffering required between a planned zoning district like this and a neighborhood, if it's close to a neighborhood. It's really going to be a case-by-case basis that the city council will have to make the determination when they look at the entire proposal for this planned zoning district. I think basically that's what the definition is. That's where we're at this point. And it would allow something we haven't allowed before, which is 5 persons, unrelated persons, in a single structures, which we have not allowed before. Although, of course, when they're related, you can have a whole bunch. I mean, if the Duggars move down here, they can have 20 or so, however many they got. As long as they're all related, you can have unlimited numbers of people in the house. We do not limit the size of families. So that's where we're at. You know, I could read the new language. If you all have you all heard the new language at all?
No.
Okay, let me go ahead and just read the part that's new. The 3 persons and the 4-person language is identical the way it was. But what we're saying is that a family is no more than 4 persons unless all related and occupy the dwelling as a single housekeeping unit, with the exception that the city council may permit a definition of family as no more than 5 persons unless all are related and occupy the dwelling as a single housekeeping unit in a specific planned zoning district with proper safeguards for the surrounding neighborhood, such as requiring that each 5-person unit must be placed within a freestanding structure of not more than 2 stories and be buffered from other residential districts outside of the planned zoning district. Those are not absolute requirements that they have to be freestanding or they're limited to 2 stories, but I think it shows the intent of the city council that they don't want a tall building all with 5 units. 5-person units in there. They don't want to just make a new kind of apartment. Instead, they want to try to provide what's not being provided right now, which is a home type environment, but with enough students to be able to afford that home type environment. And so I think that's what this definition is trying to go toward. So that's what we've come up with, and I think that Rhonda is fairly happy with it. And to Jeremy Pate, who is our Community Services Director, and he's looked over, and I think thinks that it's workable. So that's currently the proposal.
One of the things that helped me with this, and I think I'd like to share with you all, is I asked Jeremy to review with me exactly what happens when an applicant would want this to be considered. And so these kind of are the steps, and I think this is very helpful to me because I'm not a planner, and okay, an applicant seeking to develop a property and wanting to use the 5 unrelated person family definition would submit plans to staff initially, as always. Proposal would be reviewed and recommendations for screening or anything else would be developed. And then based on factors, the staff may or may not recommend approval of the use of the 5-person unit that's being proposed. The planning commission would then review the plans and take into account the surrounding neighborhoods and all of that. And then the project itself, including the type of buildings and the density, they would look at all of that and then make a recommendation. Then the city council would take up consideration of the proposal and make a decision. So there's a risk on an applicant that a lot of these processes would go forward and then it would not be approved by the council.
And before the planning commission and city council, of course, the neighbors would have every opportunity to come in and say what they thought might be necessary to make this compatible with their neighborhood.
But would this apply to existing? What immediately comes to mind, over close to where we live, they built the houses, 2 stories, which fits within the category, very close together. And already the streets are just jammed in there. I mean, they're both sides.
They're not a planned zoning district.
Okay, so they would be.
That's just regular zoning.
They would fall under the regular rule. Now, that was a PZD. No, it was across the road, wasn't it?
But even though it was an existing PZD,
Right. Okay.
the existing PZD is controlled by the law that was in effect at that time.
Right. Okay.
And would not be affected by this.
And I've said in my blog, if you have a chance to read it, one of the saddest things to me since I got on city council are these calls from people, and some of my friends, actually a couple of very good friends, who spend all their money buying a house in a neighborhood. They can finally, get their affordable, wonderful house, only to find that little by little, groups of students are living illegally there, and they're spending their time and their energy calling. And I think our code compliance office does a really good job of trying to do that. But this would make it so that when you moved in there, you would know in advance, and it gives for future students, I believe. I mean, I've got law students who would like to live together because it's affordable in a 4-bedroom house for 5 of them to move in there, and they know it's illegal. But if something like this were approved, it seems to me that it would give groups like that who don't want to live in an apartment complex an alternative to do it legally in a planned area. And I gotta tell you, some of these 4, 8, 12 houses per acre homes, individual homes, there's a lot of disappointment there. A lot of disappointment there in what's happening in those neighborhoods. And so it just seems to me that the time is right for us. We don't want to change anything. I just keep saying I want to keep protecting our neighborhoods, and I promise to you that that's my heart. To keep protecting our neighborhoods. I have knocked on doors in my neighborhood. But I do think that as we look to the future and as the university grows in very big numbers, that it's just time for us to look at it. We as a city council, or the city council after me, might never one time approve one of these 4- and 5-bedroom planned developments that is freestanding rather than an apartment. We might never. But, and I'm not committed to any project or and that's the reason we're talking about this as a policy and not about an individual project. It's not about a project. It's been tough. I've faced a lot of questions, and I've had to learn a lot in a very short time, and I have to walk it on tomorrow night to do this because I haven't been able to my father-in-law's been ill and work has been, how those things are. We keep kind of getting changes in ideas and how we might make it better, stronger, or in some ways less. We don't want to put a bunch of things in there. It has to be this, it has to, because that takes away the purpose. The purpose is we don't know what might be brought to our city, for some creative and fabulous, beautiful ideas for a development that we hadn't even thought of. We can't put in a bunch of things, I don't think. I don't want to, I'm not qualified to do that. But I think I'm qualified as your representative to listen to you and try to do what I think is the wish of my ward and the city on a development that might be a really grand idea or might be a really bad idea. Does that make sense at all?
You always make sense.
Well, this is tough for me because I am so appreciative of the people before me who have made it possible for me to live in a gorgeous neighborhood that has all kinds of just cool features with students. I like living near students, but I want us to protect it. And the name of my blog entry, if you have a chance to look at it, and I encourage you to do so. I hope the media will look at it and get it right too on what I'm thinking. I think the name of it is How to Support, I think I passed that out, but how do we support our neighborhoods and our university at the same time? Which, university is kind of a big thing to support in this city, and it's a pleasure to support it. I think we'll have some students come to speak. I think we might even have some, I've had students in my office today kind of excited about the land use class, or they're looking at innovative, creative new ways in which to provide housing for people.
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
And I may want Kit to answer this because I'm asking for interpretation in terms of our neighborhood. I think of our neighborhood as a single-family neighborhood, and I don't know what the zoning classification is.
I would guess you probably are single family, but I wouldn't know that unless I looked at the maps and planning.
So the question is, on the assumption that I do live in a single-family neighborhood, hypothetically, if a house burns down, so the property becomes vacant and not built on, is that eligible for this plan that zoning district requests?
There's no limit on the size for a planned zoning district. Now, I will say this, I've never seen one be a single unit, and I doubt very seriously if the city council is gonna say, oh yes, let's plop a 5-person unit right in the middle of a single-family neighborhood. I mean, you've got to some extent, trust democracy and trust your representatives not to make a big mistake like that.
In the middle of this election cycle, you're saying that to me?
Oh, yeah. You still gotta have faith in democracy. You know, we still practice it here in Fayetteville, and you can never get past it because the city council can do whatever they want to. They can come up and say, no more than 20 persons that are unrelated. They're not gonna do that because you've got responsible aldermen there. You have responsible aldermen not gonna let what you talked about happen either.
Okay, now, I'm interpreting what you're saying as, yes, it would be eligible to be presented to the city council as a request.
There's no limit that I'm aware of that says a PCD must be a certain size.
No, that wasn't my question. My question was because it's in the middle of a single-family residential neighborhood.
Correct. If they want to try to come in with a planned zoning district of a single house, which has never been done before, but maybe they could.
Okay, so there's nothing to prevent that other than our faith in our local government system.
And the fact that it would be expensive and almost certainly a failure, and they would have to spend a lot of money. The reason that developers don't like to do PCDs sometimes is because there's much more engineering costs.
Oh, I understand all of that.
And if you're denied, you lose those engineering costs.
My question was solely whether this ordinance as drafted would prevent them from even making the request.
Oh, no.
And I'm interpreting your answer as no.
And Bill, I'm gonna add to that when I talked to a Ward 4 person, an attorney last week about this friend of mine, she said, why don't you put a limit on, why don't you just incorporate a limit? And I said, what would that be? And she said, 10 acres. And I said, 10 acres. Okay, I said, well, I've got 9.75 acres. Is the city gonna listen to me? And she said, no. So I got 9.99 acres. I don't see how we can arbitrarily set, the whole point of this,
I'm not suggesting any changes right now. I had a simple question and I got a simple answer.
And that's a great question because that was put to me, why don't you set a minimum? You didn't say that, but this person did. And I immediately thought, well, that's not a bad idea, because I don't want the law, that's not a bad idea. But then the more I talked about that with other people and thought about it, why would we I'd come up with a number, because we're trying, that's what I was saying, I'm trying not to put a whole bunch of, let the council, let the city and the council consider an idea that maybe hadn't been thought of on a piece of property that would be kind of arbitrary, I think, and
keep
that's
in
my
mind,
thoughts.
we're not DC here. We actually have our aldermen get along and make reasonable, smart decisions. We're not gonna always agree with every one of them, but we're far from DC.
That's a great question, I'm so glad you asked it, because it has been asked in a little different way and caused me to put a lot of thought and consideration into that. I think it's a great question.
Well, what about the option of defining the PZD as limited in the sense of it not being allowable within existing R1 neighborhoods?
Well, right now, the PZD ordinance can go anywhere, and it has. And when we annex land in, it's either, it used to be RA, but we annexed a lot of R1 when we went west. And to say that it can't go into a residential single-family neighborhood, there might be a giant swath of land that has nothing on it that was zoned back in the 70s, or residential single-family, and now you're just saying, well, sorry, because it was zoned there, you can't do it. Now, if you rezone it to something else, then you can put a PZD on it. I think you just gotta instead trust your representatives, because they can do anything. They have the power. They can zone it commercial or industrial. I mean, they have all kinds of power, and so we've just got to trust the city council. And I think that the city council has proven to be fairly reliable and listening to the neighborhoods and trying to be responsive to them. And I just don't think that they're gonna make a terrible decision. Now, it doesn't mean that they might not put a PZD that's adjoining residential single-family neighborhoods. And that's why this says to put whatever buffering that is needed in there, if buffering is needed. And there's lots of ways to do that. You could, if you have a large PZ that's adjoining a single-family neighborhood, well, maybe you wouldn't put any of those 5-unit houses right next to a single-family neighborhood. You'd put them in the middle of the PZD. And then around the edge, you'd have more compatible housing. So there's lots of ways that the city council can look at in order to try to make sure that there's not going to be a bad effect on the residential single-family neighborhoods that might be near. But I would leave that on a case-by-case basis with the city council, and to have them listen to you and then make the right decision.
I think that's a fabulous question, and it got asked to be a little bit differently too, and I'll speak to that a little different way. At one point, I was interested in inserting into this that the only way it would be approved by the council would be if it were managed oversight, some kind of a property that had management. And again, I'm like, well, what exactly does that mean? I don't know. But in my mind, it would be. I can't imagine ever. But it's not exactly to your question, just like Bill's wasn't exactly to his, but it's kind of a piece of it. Is where would anything like this be appropriate? Would never be appropriate in their existing neighborhood. I can't imagine it ever would be appropriate in a neighborhood, ever. But where there is green land that's undeveloped, particularly if it's something that's interesting to students or groups of people, I think it's something that we ought to at least be able to look at. I am convinced that we're not poking a hole in our ordinance. It's something I've used that phrase a lot. I'm convinced that it's not, but I sure want to, that's why we're here tonight to talk about it, because I wanted to hear you. And
You brought up a good suggestion. This might be for like elder care or something. It doesn't have to be, we're all thinking college students, but it could be something much different. It really could. There's no square footage requirements in the ordinance as it stands now. Okay.
now, it does end with the Fraternity Sororities Institute. I think I passed out every copy I had. The
Yeah, well, it
last
says,
line-
just like the current one does, that persons are related are related for purposes of definition if they're related by blood, marriage, adoption, guardianship, or other duly authorized custodial relationship. The definition of family does not include fraternities, sororities, clubs, or institutional groups. Which have, fraternities, sororities have their own little place in there, and they do have some requirements of square footage of land per occupant. Hopefully, most of the fraternity sororities will stay on campus. That's where we would prefer them to be.
But again, another kind of, and I know you need to go, but we think about our own neighborhood. Some of us who live in the University Heights neighborhood, a lot recently had a house built on it, a large house. Some of us walked through it or saw inside it before it was finished. And we know that it has a whole bunch of bedrooms and a whole bunch of bathrooms, maybe 5 or 6 or 7. And it went through the planning process and it was approved, and it's a single family home approved in our neighborhood. That's what it is. And it's just pretty difficult to
That is a
believe.
fine example
It's a great
of
example.
why there is a certain amount of distrust.
But that was
With-
perfectly legal. To put that house there in a single family is
Well, at
perfectly-
least what was told
It's
to the
who's lit-
city council by the developer and owner, it would have been legal if he actually did what he said he was doing with his maids and
Oh, I'm
servants.
talking about different. No, I'm talking
You're
about
talking about
different.
different.
You're talking about different. one.
Okay, that's the one
talking
I'm
about the one
familiar
that-
with.
Yeah, all over the big brick new home, beautiful home. But it's, yeah, exactly.
We're not perfect, we
Doesn't-
can't do everything exactly right.
No. And I understand that this is a policy statement, and that policy statements can't contain too much detail or they become micromanagement.
I don't think you tie the hands of the
They
city.
can tie the hands of everybody, not just the city. So, I don't have a problem with that.
Well, I am so delighted that we have Ward 4 meetings and that we have a place to talk about it and share it. Because like I said, I haven't brought this to the city council. I have emailed a few members telling them what I was gonna do, just saying, here's what I'm planning to do, because I want to surprise everybody with this. I think that's kind of rude. But I'm trying to work through my list of people that I want to talk to. And I want everybody who has a thought on this to email me and call me. But I'm very grateful to Kit Williams for being here tonight to talk about it. Does anyone else have any questions or comments before we move on to some others?
Move on to important business, I'll get out of here.
Kit, I know you needed to, thank you for being here to talk about it. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Anybody else, comments or thoughts? And like I said, to start with, there might be a time where a developer or a landowner or developer or person would be here to talk about a specific, well, I would want that. I would want that, and I would hope we just fill the room up about anything specific, but this isn't the time for that. I wasn't willing to look at this with something in mind. I wanted to look at it broad and then come back with something in mind if somebody wants to, but, okay. So,
Brenda, one thought
okay.
that nobody mentioned. In the last decade or so, many more things have become staff decisions instead of planning commission decisions. Many more things have become planning commission decisions instead of council decisions. So there is this, even a decade ago, I remember being told, well, oh, you don't need to talk about that at the planning commission, you can go to the council. By person in power. Didn't happen. And now that's more likely not to happen. So if something comes in like that, you need to be at the plat review. If you're interested in it in your neighborhood or whatever, you need to be at subdivision committee meetings. You need to speak at every level. First, if you're old as some of us, you might not feel like going the next time it gets to the next level. But still, the fact is that it's important. And if the council's really doing their work, if they don't attend any of those subsidiary meetings, they will watch them on government channel, not just read minutes, which are very sketchy these days. We don't have as many people now who can actually take that fantastic bit of notes with minutes. So the government channel video is where you find out what occurred in those previous things. And the council member needs to do that too. to get background, because they get a massive packet. How you go through it for a meeting, Ron, I don't know. So it's a big responsibility, so.
Well, I
Any
sit beside
change?
Bobby Farrell, and I know if I haven't read every page, I'm gonna be shown up.
You're gonna be shown up?
He reads every page, and Sarah does too. So, thank you for saying that, and I did state, and again, in my comments, that it was very important to me that it be, I didn't want these sorts of things decided by appointments. And that's kind of what you were saying. I'd like to see, not that we have a Board of Adjustments, or there have been a couple of citizens who've suggested to me that this very thing might be considered by a Board of Adjustments. And I could see the Board of Adjustments for setbacks and things like that, but for, this is to me something that citizens should be, okay. Okay, anybody else? Thank you very much. That's well said. I just don't think it hurts to tell y'all that I'm nervous about this, but I do believe in it, or I wouldn't do it. So I can get on that on the things I'm more comfortable with. I'm on the street committee, and I want to talk to you a little bit about Ward 4 street issues. Lieutenant Waters has been, and our Fayetteville Police Department have been very helpful about some Salem Village. I think I've reported to you 2 or 3 times. There's some folks who enter Salem Village from the back entrance, and they cut through to Clabber Creek Boulevard, and it intersects with Tim's, and then they go the wrong way for about 150 to 100 feet. And that neighborhood is a beautiful planned neighborhood with lots of children running around. They have a shared swimming pool and lots of public space that they use together. And these people going the wrong way has been a huge problem. And ever since I've been on council now for over a year, I've been on this. And I thank the Fayetteville Police Department for going out there and trying to help us. Also, the transportation department put some striping down. We're trying to find some ways to help, but it's a difficult situation that it's ongoing. In our own neighborhood, down in your area, it's been reported about the Palmer-Hartman kind of patchwork. That's scheduled to get completely re-asphalted. I talked to Terry Gully about that today again in March. We should start seeing all that area down there get some it's gonna be beautiful.
Well, you know my feeling about that. I disagree with some of my neighbors about it.
You do?
I think that streets in need of repair are informal, very effective speed humps.
Even that place that's
A lot
falling
cheaper
off in
than
the ditch.
There's a question of safety, but when it comes to aesthetics, see, and if there's been a cut made across the road to put in a utility line, and when it's filled, it sags just a little, that's a negative speed hump, and it's extremely effective, and I like it.
Same way with like trees on the side that get overgrown, yeah.
Yes.
Well, we've heard very positive responses to the Cleveland, I don't know, some of you who walk on that, but I got an email just over the weekend from somebody who walks his child to school and said, thank you to our city for putting that sidewalk on the south side of Cleveland so that students don't have to cross the street there at the top of Cleveland when people are going too fast. And so that's been a great improvement, and I thank Terry Gully and Transportation for getting that accomplished. Another issue in Ward 4 that's kind of been blowing up a little bit is Shiloh and Moore. I don't know where that is, down by Sam's, and I guess there's some increased traffic down there. There have been a few wrecks there. Somebody stops but can't see and so that's something that the transportation and engineering are looking at, and we're going to be talking about at street committee tomorrow night. So those are sort of the street transportation things that have been going on in my.
Rhonda, excuse me for interrupting you, but
Thank you.
I want to follow up on what you just said. Did you just say there is a situation where people are sort of coming and the stop ahead of them is blind, they can't see?
That's what's been reported by,
Okay.
yes.
Now, we had that situation close to our neighborhood a few years back. It's south of the university on, I don't know whether it's Clinton Drive or California, what it is. But swinging around a curve, a bunch of landscaping, which was very beautiful, should not be removed and was not at the time, obscured the stop sign. So the traffic department just simply put a sign in 50 or 75 yards ahead of it where you could see it while you were still on the clear that said stop sign ahead.
Oh.
And that solved the problem. So, you know,
So not
consider that
necessarily
possible.
putting another stop sign in, but yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, so, you know, have them think about that, if it applies.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Well, I brought the entire street committee agenda if anybody's interested, but there are some good things going on, and it's here if anybody wants to see it.
Rhonda?
Yes.
There's a situation, and I'm sure you probably know about it, on Lafayette, it's got a lot of holes in it, or some holes in it.
They're getting deeper.
They're getting deeper, and you can't, it's hard to miss these holes because they're expanded. And it's the area between Maple and North Street.
Water's draining into it.
And there's some
Deeper.
bad drainage in there too. There's water running down that street all the time. We come that street a lot going to Central.
Between Maple
It's not-
and on Lafayette.
I believe the
between-
street's name is Lafayette.
Okay,
And
Okay. Thank you. Let
the
me-
holes are, they come out and they put some patch stuff in it, but
That whole
it
stretch
beats
between
out constantly
Maple
and it's
and
another hole.
North Street is really bad. The long lever between Maple and North,
Yes.
that whole strip
But
is,
Maple runs into North, right?
no, lever
Between.
does.
No, by the university.
Okay, so if you're on Maple,
Not too far from Ella's, down on that next corner, at
Okay.
that next light.
okay, I will take a look at that and I'll email y'all what I learned about that, okay?
I think she's talking about Leverage Street,
That may
just to
be-
clear it up.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's probably.
Okay,
it,
that
'cause
helps.
I might
It is
be
pretty
confused
bad.
by the name of the street, but it's the next light, from Ella's if you're going west.
Yes, okay.
And that's the street down to North Street. It always has water draining down through there, and I don't know where this water is coming from, whether it's,
Probably a spring.
it must be.
We got a lot of springs buried.
I'll
in
look and
these
see if
hills.
that's on the,
Some of that old.
thank you.
Ain't open, I know. Probably just water lines running.
Okay, so the other thing, I just wanted to tell y'all something I did that was fun, that was really nice to, the city council was invited to go to the Chamber of Commerce's, they have a teen leadership program, and the teens were there doing their government day. And so I went and talked to them a little bit about city council and about running for election and helping out with campaigns and getting involved in that. And it was a great day. One of the most fun things I've done on city council as just a service. Somebody from the chamber sent a picture of me in the city council room in front of all these Fayetteville high school kids. But they were great. They asked questions and talked, and I had it was very well spent hour and a half of vacation time from my job at the hospital. So that was nice. I didn't mind turning that time in. It was a very good use. Okay, and what else do we have? Let's open it up for questions.
What do you know about the Marioni property? You said they weren't here tonight, but what might be going on?
Well, what I know is that I think for about 9 or 10 years they've been considering possible developments from some of the emails that I've gotten, and lots of things have been looked at. I think they're very interested in making it something very good for Fayetteville. They're not interested in apartment complex. They're not interested really in big blocks. They're interested in selling it to the right people that they think will make a good impact on Ward 4 and Fayetteville. And so, Paula Barononi did ask several of us to look at some ideas. I did that. If I took stock in 8x10 glossy photographs made by big developers, I'd say this was the most fabulous thing I'd ever seen. And it was. But what it did for me, rather than make me say, wow, let's find a way for them to do this beautiful 8x, this, what it did for me was make me say, wow, there are things I have never thought about. I've never seen, I've never imagined, and that got me on this. So I do think that there will come a time, if it's the Marinoni, if that idea is what she is interested in, or if other developers in town are interested, I do think there might be a time where she would come here, and I would invite her to, Sarah and I would agree to invite her to and let people look at it, but her ideas and the photos and all did cause some of us to think about what might be out there that we haven't thought about or couldn't consider. So she is considering, it's like a cottage. This idea was sort of cottages. Some of them were connected, some of them were freestanding, some have some architectural enhancements that might join two buildings together, managed, kind of an apartment complex with 3, 4, and 5 bedroom things in it, but cottage kinds of things. Cottage, I don't like to use the word cottage because you all may remember that a month or so ago the city council did approve a new cottage plan that we can use for small cottages. Has all kinds of rules about that, and we did that. So this wouldn't be that if she brought that forward, but it looks a little bit like that. So instead of your typical, what we think of as an apartment complex, it would be a mixture of different sized buildings with some commercial property involved and some trails, and she would have to come tell us all about that. But that's what she shared with me.
Where's this property at?
It's Weddington and 540 is her property.
Okay. Okay, on that corner? Okay, yeah, I know what you're
They
talking about.
put that
That's been sitting there
sign
for a
up
long time.
2 or 3 years ago, and they've got some streets in there, so they must have had pretty concrete intentions at one point that fell through.
Yeah, they've got some streets and utilities and everything else in there.
Some of you know a lot more about the history.
I know about what he knows.
And I know, and I mean it when I say that. If you, I just want you to believe that what it did for, this exact, what her idea that I listened to for a few minutes very happily. I will listen to people happily. It's the best part of this job, is talking to people and hearing what they have in mind and thinking about things I've never thought about before. That's what that did for me. She has some ideas for that property that I had never looked at before. And I don't know what it might turn out to be or even if the city council would approve it if this gets through. But it is, she's trying to be innovative and creative, and that's what she explained to me. That's what she explained to me. I'm not going to speak for her, but this is what she told me. And she emailed and contacted every city council member asking for an opportunity to be heard about this very large, very visible, very beautiful piece of property that we all care about, I think. And I think it's kind of cool that the seller, any seller in town, would open up to the citizens to talk about which is why I went and talked to her. I will listen to any seller who cares that we all have who knows that we all have some interest in what the property looks like. Am I making any sense at all? So I went and listened to her, and I will do it to anybody. And it was some kind of interesting ideas for that sort of space. It's zoned single family. I think right now she could put 4 or 8 or I don't know how many houses on every acre out there. And it would be another subdivision. I think she could do that by right, is what I understand. But, and I'm actually delighted that she's looking at other possibilities rather than just go in there and do that by right. So.
There's good precedent for that. Over the years, we've had people come in and talk to us about things like this.
Mhm.
And my first question to anybody would be, why not just limit it to 4 bedrooms? You can do that in a multifamily, just limit it to 4. Well, like I said, that's a beautiful piece of land and a fabulous piece of town. And anybody who owns land like that's gonna wanna do, anybody I'd want to, do what they can with their land. But it doesn't mean they're gonna get to, it just means that they, that there might be an opportunity to share an idea.
It's a very visible property
Very
too.
visible. And as a city council member, I have a real interest in seeing some fabulous commercial things put in there so that the city gets some tax dollars out of this. And so that we maybe have a restaurant or something in our neighborhood. I don't know what I envision, but I know I haven't thought of everything that could be thought of. And so I haven't, at the end of that, I was done with that. I'm like, I'm not doing this for a piece of property. I want to do this so that we can have conversation and look to the future about what might be out there that we don't know.
Going about the same line of thought. On the end of Rupel there, next to Weddington, you know, that 20 acres that just sold.
We think it did.
End of Rupel.
Just, you know. on
Across from the
right there by the Weddington.
Walmart
What's that?
neighborhood? Or are we down at Salem? I'm down at Salem.
No,
You're-
no,
you're-
no, what I call Old Rupel,
Yes.
that 1 mile in there.
Yes, okay,
Okay, you know, the old property there that's sold.
yes.
You know, well, there's 4 houses, 5 houses altogether, and then there's 20-acre parcel in there that's sold. And as of yet, I haven't dug in and tried to find out who bought it and why and anything else. And have you any idea what they're gonna do? Their
Does
plans are.
anybody?
At one time, you know, they talked about, we're gonna put, who was it? They was gonna put a commercial building in it, you know. They've rezoned it, I think, commercial years ago.
Next to the street.
Next to the street,
wedding.
part next to the
Wedding
street,
area.
behind you know, that electrical company there.
But what they're gonna do with the rest of it, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know what they're gonna do with it.
It's gonna be
We'll
something
check
like
it out.
that.
Because right now, it's all rent houses, and they rent it for anything they can get out of it, and there's really had some bad people in there. The cops have been there, and the druggies, and
Oh, yeah, the cops got everybody out
everything
there
else.
every few
And
days.
I'm glad to hear that I didn't know about that 3 knock people, because that big 2-story house has been full of college kids. On weekends, you'll find 10 cars piled up out there.
That's the farmhouse on the west side.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
there used to be Dr.
It's the
Place
old
there.
Rupel property.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a rural property.
And, we live in the 4th house, the other 2-story on down.
Yeah, and it's, yeah, you can tell it was
Huh?
Just
just,
see what I can learn.
Okay, yeah,
they just
yeah.
piled up
I was
everywhere.
gonna dig into it, but then, because we visited with a young couple that lived next door there that bought, you know, it's renting you guys' old place. And, you know, he's paying almost nothing for rent because he had to go in and do a lot of work on the place. And, so we just really don't, and he's telling us what's going on down in them other houses.
He calls it the hood.
Calls it the hood down there, you know.
Oh dear.
And one night there was 3 police cars out in the front of his house because they got the wrong house. And it was the next house,
It
down.
was the next one.
They were put in there as rental houses, weren't
Yes.
they?
Yeah, well, you know, you had, Doctor, what's his name?
Yeah.
No,
Well-
Mr. Garrison inherited that and he put those in. He
Well,
moved
I
them
mean, the
in
other houses in the back
For rental
there.
Oh,
houses.
the doctor, when he lived there, I don't know what his name
What was his name? You went to him. Atwood.
Plastic surgeon.
He's one of them.
But he wasn't the one that did it, Mr. Garrison did it.
Did it at the old house
They're
tonight.
Inherited.
But they've got all them
Yeah, I
houses.
thought
You're
so.
right.
Oh, I know.
Harrison didn't exactly carry it, he stole it, but he.
Well, yeah,
The only
he's
thing I
told me,
think,
but I
the only
mean,
thing
he's
I
the one that, he
think
moved those
before
houses in.
whoever bought
and-
it
Yeah.
did go in there and clean a little bit of the weeds and brush out. Where, when the bank had it, Foster was taking, you know, keeping an eye out, he was collecting the rent. They didn't do anything. In fact, I had to call city code people out a couple of times
It's been
Well-
interesting.
to take care of
See what
water
I can
running
find
through the
out on
yards
that.
and
Oh, dear.
their sewers backing up.
Sorry to hear that.
It's just,
Well, I think it's 5 minutes till 8. Does anybody have any, I wanted to say one other thing. I don't know how many of you read the paper this morning? Marion Orton was referred to as a he.
Yes.
And I think you all know I know better, and I talked to Joel today, and he felt horrible, it's embarrassing somehow, and he knows too. He submitted it, and it got changed somehow in editing, and he's upset about that too. But you may have heard in the mayor's state of the city address a couple of weeks ago that I plan to bring forward with the mayor an idea that we name the new recycling center in the west side of town after Marion Orton in some way. And I didn't know, when I read the paper today, I was surprised about her being the first manager of you probably knew that. I didn't know that.
City manager?
Manager of recycling, first recycling center. And I thought he had gotten confused when I just said, you know, she's the first female city manager, and she talked to me about that several times. And I knew that she pioneered, I talked to Mary Alice Serafini, and I know that a lot of the women in the League of Women Voters have talked about what a champion Marion was for recycling in her city back in the early 70s, 1971 or whatever, but I wanted y'all to know that when he called me and asked me about it because he heard the mayor report it, that we had a very good conversation, and he and I thought we were on the same page, but something happened in editing or something, so that'll be corrected. But I hated, all I can say is that I think Marion would have thought it was funny. You know, she laughed in front of my house all the time about all kinds of funny things when she walked through the neighborhood, so.
So what's the status of this?
The
Robbie?
status is that we're going to bring it forward. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but right now the city is listening to there's gonna be this solid waste review and lots of things going on, but it is gonna, we believe it's gonna move forward, and this will be a nice educational facility and drop-off facility for the west
No,
side.
I mean, what's the status of it being named in some way? For
We haven't
Marion?
really taken that out yet to get that done, but we're planning to. And I'm gonna work with the mayor on getting that. We haven't started the process.
Is there any controversy there that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. Does anyone, I'd love to, that's really why I wrote it down to talk about it here. Sarah and I've chatted about it, and I think, I don't wanna speak for her, but I didn't feel anything but positive there. A brief conversation that we had, and like I said, I talked to Mary Alice Serafini and a few people that I know were friends with Marion and Joe Gwen, and think that everyone I've talked to has been very supportive of that idea. Do you all have thoughts or comments?
It's a great idea.
Oh, good, thank you. I could really use a little yay. Good. Well, she was an awesome woman, and I only got to know her for about 5 years, but she encouraged me and signed my petition in your yard, David Williams.
Is that right?
Yes,
My
she was
goodness
there in her
gracious.
wheelchair, and she signed my petition and talked to me about running and supported me in several ways. And so I thought this might be a great opportunity to honor her work, and the mayor's very excited about it.
You know, she had a lot to do with our having an open channel, and it's now several channels, and having this process going on that shares information with the public.
She's a very brave and forward-thinking woman who was willing to stick her neck out on things that weren't very.
She was
I'm not
pioneer
sure.
in lots and lots
Lots
of
of
this.
I'm not sure Open Channel would have made it through those first 4 years if she hadn't hung in there.
That's right.
I mean, she really just kept it going. And we're to tell Marion stories. She was chair of my board at the Guidance Center for several years. And boy, did I learn a lot about public governance. From her.
Chair
Just
of your
great.
board.
Yeah, she's just great in many ways. That's a great idea.
Again, on my blog back last October, November, I put a piece out there about her because her caretakers and her children would push her in front of our house in her wheelchair, and Chuck and I would take turns running out there and letting the dogs see her and all, because for years she was healthy walking with Joe Gwen through the neighborhood, and then when she got put in her wheelchair, she just kept walking in the wheelchair. So, and she had the smile as big as ever. She never lost that, and so I'm very glad to hear you all sound like you like that idea. That's great. We'll get that done, maybe, hopefully.
I'll go with a slightly stronger statement. If it becomes controversial and you need somebody to show up somewhere and speak in support of it, I'll do it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I see a lot of nods. I think we can, that's wonderful.
I'll play the trombone.
There you go. Very good.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else?
Let me say one thing for Environmental Action Committee, still working to get enough homes certified as National Wildlife Federation certified habitat, wildlife habitat. That doesn't mean you have to have a lot of deer and cougars, just butterflies, bees, and squirrels or whatever shows up with birds.
Coons and
But-
possums, yeah.
Yeah, they count. If you got those, you get some.
Who all has done it in here? I have. David,
Well,
you
I
got
thought
it?
I had done it, but I haven't heard anything back from
Oh,
it.
you have?
Oh, we didn't send the paperwork in?
I don't even know where it is.
Well, it's so, I'll put a link out there on my blog for y'all to find the link to that, because I know
Okay.
Sarah and Aubrey, you've got it out there already. You wanna send it to me and let me kind of forward that out?
I'll try to remember.
If you can, we'll work together to get that
Remind
done.
me.
It's real easy to do, very very, just very easy to do, and we didn't buy the big plaque or anything, they just send you a certificate, a paper
Right.
certificate, a frameable, suitable for framing, if you wish. I know right where mine is, but it's not framed. But it's a wonderful thing to do that, I think, it's easy to do.
Well, I went down the checklist, and I think we qualified for almost all of it, right? Because we have a pond.
Well, that's probably the hardest thing on the list to accomplish, in my mind it was.
And I have a lot of butterflies and bees. And,
Well, I'm very glad to hear
in
you
the
bring that
garden.
up, yeah.
You know, it's,
Bird feeders and, bird
Let's
houses.
get you certified, was a goal. One more quick thing, do y'all like meeting at 7 o'clock? Someone asked me about us changing to 6. What do y'all think about that?
6 is a little early.
Too early?
Even if you're retired, it's too early.
What about 6:30?
7 works out good. That's when that works with my different time.
You wanna keep it at 7 o'clock?
I'm comfortable.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, 7 it is. We'll see you all here on February and hopefully Sarah will be back. We wish her safe travels. I miss her when she's gone a lot. She knows that. She's awesome to work with, and I'm delighted that she said in the paper last week or so that she'll be a candidate again. So we'll meet on the last Monday of February, which is the 27th, at 7 o'clock in this room, okay? I happen to know right now that I have to be out of town on work that day, so Sarah will be here on the 27th with you all at 7 p.m. Okay? All right.